previously mentioned, this is a workshop on conflict management, which I feel like will be useful to you all since you work in Res Life, and you had mentioned that you wanted to be an RA maybe eventually. So first thing I wanted to go over was nonverbal skills. I feel like a lot of people overlook nonverbals because, like, when you think of communication, the first thing that comes to your mind is talking, right? Most of the time anyways. So the thing about communication is it's inevitable. You can't not communicate. You're always communicating. Even when you're silent, you're communicating something. Maybe you're pissed off. Maybe you're tired. Nonetheless, you're communicating. So another thing is communication is irreversible. You can't take it back once it's already happened. So you can always alter the content. For example, if you said something really mean to someone, you could always apologize. However, what was said won't be forgotten. Also, communication is frequently misunderstood because we can't get inside each other's minds, so we don't know exactly what the intent is in the communication. It can be often misunderstood, so don't ever be afraid to ask for clarification. So I wanted to go into a little exercise. This first one, can I have 4 volunteers? 1, 2, 3. Are you willing? Awesome. So who wants to be a storyteller? Joel, you be a storyteller. Alright, so can you leave the room for like 5 seconds real quick while I instruct these 3? And while you're in the other room, think of a story of maybe a time that you were really frustrated about something.
Okay.
Alright. Sure, thank you. Alright, so I'm going to ask that you're going to be, like, none of you are going to be talking at all. But I want you to be listening to Joel, but you're going to have certain, like, personalities. So you're really anxious about something, so maybe you're, like, constantly checking your phone, like you have somewhere else to be. So, like, you're like, really anxious. And you volunteered, right? So I'm going to ask that you are, like, really pissed off at Joel. Like, he did something previously where, like, you like, don't want to talk to him, you're, like, barely making eye contact with him in your arm, you're, like, rolling your eye. You know, like, that kind of nonverbals. So, like, remember, you're not talking all this, all nonverbals. And Tim, this is going to be maybe a little tricky, but I'm going to ask that you have a huge crush on Joel. And so when he's talking to you, you're going to be, like, dropping, like, nonverbal signs that, like, you're interested in him. You know what I mean? All right. Actually, if you all want to, like, sit over here together so that he can only be facing one way as he's talking to you all. So he's going to be telling you all the same story at the same time. So you can stay there, but maybe if Kylie and then Tim can sit there. And then Matt, just observe. Yeah. You ready? All right, can you be on this side, please?
All right.
And so these 3 are going to be listening to your story.
All right.
And just kind of keep an eye out for how you feel when they're responding to you the way that they are. Ready to go.
Alright, so earlier this week I was in a class, and it's a class I actually really like because it's what I want to do later on in my career. It's a consumer behavior class. And so I was in class, and there was this guy who was sitting diagonally from me, and he had his laptop out, which like half the class does. And most people take notes, but he wasn't. He decided to have a Nintendo 64 emulator on his computer and play Mario Kart the entire time. And it made me really mad because I was like, if you're just going to sit there and play video games, why would you come to class? Like, it's distracting, and you're not paying attention, and it just made me so mad because I actually really liked it, and I kept getting sidetracked by him and his terrible driving skills. And it just pissed me off so much because I just wanted to smack him. And I couldn't because that's not nice. And so I was mad.
Alright, we can end there. So, do you want to go ahead and guess, like, what he was?
Okay, he was interested, kind of. Like, to a moderate level. But he seemed like he was distracted.
Yes.
He was distracted.
And then Kylie?
Was uninterested.
Yes, she was very interested. She was mad at you.
Oh, wow.
And Tim?
Tim was happy and very interested in my story.
I had Tim romantically interested in you.
Oh. Just completely skip that.
But anyway, so how did it feel to be telling your story to these people and having someone who's only half paying attention, constantly checking their phone, having someone completely uninterested, and then having someone who's like actually like engaged in what you're saying, just like
Yeah, that's a really good
I
story.
kept trying to like look at Kylie because I could tell like she wasn't paying attention. So I was like, I wanted to like especially give her extra attention because I was like, I kind of got him, and I know I got Tim, so I wasn't paying attention. So yeah, it was like I was more focused over here because I knew I had Tim's attention.
Was it frustrating at all to like be telling something like where you're so frustrated and then having people like not listening and like not receptive?
Yeah, because like Tim was responding and Kylie wasn't, and so I just wanted to be like, listen! Like it wasn't even like she was listening at all.
Yeah. All right. And was it difficult for you all to do that? Yeah.
I liked your little I didn't do anything wrong. I was like, I guess it's okay. I could come across like I was trying to like, I was thinking about like how I act when I'm upset, and I was like trying to not take attention. Honestly, only half your story. I was trying to be angry.
No, that's good because like I feel like when you are really angry, all you're thinking about is how angry you really are, and it's hard to be like communicating with people. So, do you ever feel yourself doing these things when you're communicating with people? Like maybe you have class in half an hour, so you're like constantly checking your phone, like, wow, I really care what you're saying, except I really gotta go. Or like you have this grudge with someone, and you're just like, oh God, shut up, I don't want to hear this. Or maybe you're like really infatuated with someone, you're like, yeah, tell me more, just keep talking. And so like, do you ever have those? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay,
Oh, yeah.
all right.
Every time I talk to Joel.
Who can blame him?
All right, cool. Well, we'll go ahead and move on to the next one. So y'all can stay in your seats if you're comfortable where you're at. So the next skill is reflecting emotion. Sorry. So in reflecting emotion, we can talk a little bit about empathy versus sympathy. Does anyone know the difference between empathy and sympathy? Yes, Joel.
Empathy is putting yourself in another person's shoes and in their situation, and sympathy is being aware of how they're feeling in that situation.
Elaborate a little bit more on that.
Like, if someone's like dog just died, you could be like, oh, I'm so sorry for that. That would be sympathy compared to empathy, where it'd be like, oh, I know how you feel in that situation.
Okay, and so you are like right on the nail. Thank you for sharing that.
Question.
Yes.
So would you have to experience something like that to have empathy?
Not the exact thing. Like you can have something similar. Like say someone's like grandpa just died, and you're just like, oh man, like I just lost my grandma like 2 years ago. I totally understand how like the grieving process can be really difficult. So you kind of understand the grieving process, but you may not know that exact situation. Which is why I wanted to talk about how like, for example, you had said, I know exactly how you feel. Be careful saying that because people might get offended by that. Like, especially if you're going through something really, really like personal and deep and like really, really complicated, and you say, oh, I know exactly how you feel. They'd be like, dude, you don't know how I feel. Like, you don't know what I've been through. So you want to be a little careful with that, especially like in incidents. Like if you have someone who's under the influence, or maybe they're just really emotionally upset, or maybe they have a mental health or stating issue, and you say, oh, I know exactly. Like say you're talking to someone who's bipolar, who has bipolar disorder, and you tell them, oh, dude, I totally know what you mean. I know how it feels to be really angry one second and really happy the next. And they're like, dude, you have no idea what I'm going through, and you can just really offend someone. So you want to be careful with empathy, but it can be really powerful. So don't get me wrong, like it's a very powerful tool, but it can also, it's kind of tricky sometimes. Yeah, so some examples of reflecting emotion is like, say we're having a conversation, and like for example, the one that Joel was sharing, I could be like, wow, Joel, you sound really frustrated. Sounds like that person really annoyed you in class today. And that's kind of reflecting, so the two key words in there were frustrated and annoyed. But there's plenty of other words I could have used. Does anyone have any questions on how to reflect emotions in a conversation? Yeah.
When we reflect emotions, are we like justifying the way they felt?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's it's really important because it's like validating how they feel.
Yeah.
And even if you get it wrong, it opens up an opportunity for them to tell you how they feel. for example, like if I was like, wow, Joel, it sounds like you're really happy in that situation. He's like, are you kidding me? I was pissed. That's okay to be wrong because now you know how he feels. And then, like you can be like, wow, okay, you know, I see that you're really frustrated, and you know, tell me a little bit more about that. So now that you confirm that, you can keep going, and now they know that you're like on the same level as them. And I feel like that can be really helpful in in incidents. For example, I had an incident where there was these 3 girls, and they were really upset at their roommate, and I was like, wow, it seems like you're really upset that your roommate has been bringing her boyfriend over a lot. Let's talk more about the roommate agreement form. So that kind of gives them the validation of, you know, yeah, I'm really upset, and kind of like, all right, so let's see, now that we know how you feel, let's see what we can do to make it better, kind of way. So let's go ahead and break into groups. We can do let's do 2 groups. You 2 can be together, you 2 can be together, and, well, you've already done this, but if you want to be with me, we can be together. And so basically, it's going to be the same situation where you're telling a story, maybe say something. It can be anything. It can be something that you're really mad about, something you're really sad about, maybe something you're really happy about. Anything. Tell them a story, and the other person's just going to listen. And I don't want you to give advice. I don't want you to do anything except for be aware of your nonverbals. So we're going to be utilizing the skills that we just learned, and then reflecting emotions. So I know it's going to be hard to restrain yourself from that, but just try to reflect emotions and be conscious of your nonverbals. So after you're done telling your story, switch, and then we'll come together as a large group and kind of talk about how we felt. All right. I'm ready for it.
Where do you want? You want me over here?
No,
Okay, so I'm gonna tell you about something that I did.
It's okay.
I'm really happy
It's not
about.
interesting.
It doesn't have to be interesting. It can be something that, like,
Huh?
happy to have.
You're funny. So I won like $400 this weekend.
And I just told
doing
my
like
residents,
fancy
I found a
football.
Facebook group that they could come and watch it.
Yeah, no, so
And
when I was
but
at the
on
gym
last night,
on
I said you
Tuesday,
So I was in my room after
No.
around 10.
I
saw a
don't
human.
cut me off all
And
the
Joe
time. I
talked
should
with me.
start.
I was like, oh, well, it's okay. They're busy. And then
So I saw this homeless
half an
guy,
hour in,
and he was you know, he was with his dog, and he was just out on the corner, you know. And I got in my car and I thought about it, and I was like, how could I be so privileged as to have money to go out and gamble, you know, and win more money, and this guy doesn't even have food to eat. So I went up to him and I was like, yeah, I don't have any cash. Can I get food for you and your dog? Yeah, so I went to Food Max and got him, you know, cheese or crackers and salami, and I got his dog a huge bag of dog food. And I was like, nobody deserves to be hungry. Yeah.
Are you done?
Yeah. It's the worst reflecting skills ever.
Oh,
We'll talk about that afterwards.
So that was to reflect on it?
Yeah. You're supposed to reflect his emotions.
Oh, well, you told me, okay, you seemed really happy. You
Actually, no, I was more proud.
You said at the beginning that you were happy. I'm reflecting what you told me.
Okay. Alright.
All right, let's go ahead and switch partner, or switch the other person tell their story now.
Sorry. Why don't you tell me a story?
So,
Just tell me about last night.
last night was really cool.
That's small.
So I worked the desk.
I don't like
Tennis you guys around her back.
And I saw a friend
And then like before that though, I had
go on the
wings
break,
from
so
Wingstop, delicious.
so
I
I
had
decided
a
to go over and
garlic parmesan and barbecue.
and
The little
we just
cheese
spent
and chicken on
our
that.
entire
Delicious,
30-minute break
delicious.
just
And after that
talking
though,
about
unfortunately, I had desk at too. Pretty quiet night though. Just kind of listening to some music, playing some jams. Nothing crazy happened, so it was kind of smooth. But I had to work this morning at about 8:15. 9 o'clock, so I wake up a little early, went to bed kind of late. That's kind of unfortunate. But overall, kind of glad to just.
So during this
It
time,
would have been nice to have gone out, but you know.
there was a guy who
Sounds
was
peaceful.
struggling
Sounds like
in
you're
his
burning the
career,
channel at all events.
and then
I don't know what that means, but maybe.
Basically, simply put, it means that
when I was on their floor,
you're, you know, you're working a lot and you're not sleeping a lot either. You know,
Ben, and the 3 of us were
do you think that that's how you're doing?
That's not how I felt, but yeah.
I know, I don't know if that's how you felt, but I
I
just,
to know
it
that
just
the guy
sounds
in
like
3C a little better because
Yes, I would agree with
that
that.
initial
like
connection
no reflection.
in 3C and then later on the same night.
We're really bad at this.
It's okay. We can.
Not much.
awful.
It was kind of awful.
Sounds like you had a good night.
Huh?
Good for you.
I'm pretty sure.
Sounds like you were happy.
Thanks for telling me.
And in the DC or on FaceTime was with Ben's friend who lives in Colorado.
Oh, I think I went on.
Alright, so let's go ahead and, you guys ready to cut it there?
Yeah.
Alright, so, does anyone want to share some things that maybe came up, or some things that went well, some things that could have been, that can be improved on? Yes.
So it's kind of hard to hear,
Okay.
honestly. I think, I don't know why. I think it's because one ear is facing Matt.
Okay.
Yeah, it's funny. Just kidding.
And he was talking,
Mhm.
but then this other ear is facing this way and he's talking here. So like I'm trying to like focus my energy and like listen to him. But then when he paused, all I could hear was Matt's voice. So when he started talking again, I had to like refocus my energy so I could focus on hearing his voice.
Okay.
And I found myself really distracted for some reason.
So, what are some things that maybe, I mean, obviously this is a closed space, but if that were to happen in, like, an incident, what would you do?
Lean forward. But that might be too close.
Well, you also want to think about yourself in a safe space. So, depending on the situation, like, say there's a bunch of roommates who are really angry with each other, and while you're trying to talk to one roommate, the other ones are yelling at you, you're not listening to me, you're giving her all the attention, you only care about her, what would you do then?
I turned around and asked, well, like they're saying like I'm only listening to that one person right now.
Yeah.
I'd say, like I'm trying to understand what's going on from each of you, but I can't do that with all three of you talking. So, you'll have time to share with me later after, but let me get through, like just go one by one at a time.
What if that doesn't work though? Like, what if you're like, oh, well, you think that she's better than us, that you can talk to her and not us? Like, that's not fair. What would you do?
It will be fair after I talk to her, like talk to you and talk to you.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
like
something
same
that I've done in the past is that if there's other people and other distractions in the room during an incident, I'll take the one person I'm trying to talk to into a separate room and have the other RA on duty. And sometimes if it's like if the ARLC, sometimes the ARLC is there, so I'll just be like, hey, can you two stay here? Maybe you two can talk to this group of people while I talk to this resident. So you're completely separating from them so that they're not a distraction at all, and all you have is that one person. So, yeah. Tim, I noticed some frustrations when you were talking with Matt. It felt like maybe he wasn't completely getting what you were saying, and I heard at one point you said, dude, stop interrupting my story, and like, you know, how did that feel, you know?
It felt like he wasn't listening.
Right.
He didn't even reflect on it. He said, are you done?
Which is something I wanted to mention was that oftentimes there's this quote, I don't know exactly word for word, but something along the lines of, we don't listen to listen, we listen, you know, we wait for, you know, the person to stop talking so that we can talk. So I feel like that does happen a lot, like, instead of taking what the other person's saying, we'll just kind of like nod, pretend like we're listening, and then as soon as they're done, we'll jump in and start talking. And that's why in this exercise I really wanted us to focus on like the nonverbals as well as only reflecting emotions. That way you can leave a lot of the talking up to the person who's talking. Because sometimes they just need a rant, you know? And so like, yeah, you seem like you had something to say, whether it was good or bad, you're trying to get something across, and then the fact that, you know, he was interrupting you might have been frustrating, and I can see why. And so, yeah, sometimes people don't always need advice. Sometimes they just need to be heard. Did anyone else notice anything? Maybe some good things?
I noticed the one emotion you did reflect was that Tim was happy, and Tim said no, he's not, he felt proud, but you're saying that that's what he sounded like at the beginning.
No, he really told me.
It's
Yeah,
Really happy moment.
because it was like the fantasy football, you were happy that you won, got the $400.
Yeah.
So there was like,
Well, one thing I felt like too was like I was kind of going to keep going with more emotions, if that makes sense, but then you unfortunately cut me off.
That's me, art.
And kind of going back to some nonverbals, like as I was watching, I noticed Kylie was playing with her hair a lot. I'm sorry to point you out, but I felt like if I was talking to someone, I might get distracted by that because it's so like such a big action that I'd just be like, oh, like what's in your hair? Like, you know, I would completely, like my story would be forgotten. I noticed some good things Tim was doing. He was keeping both of you were keeping eye contact. Actually, all of you were keeping eye contact, which is great. Because if you are in eye contact with someone, that at least lets them know that you're trying to focus on them, whether you're able to or not. And then Tim, I noticed you were doing some head nodding, which was really great. I thought that it was like adding some affirmation to Matt. Yeah, I noticed that you two weren't all up in each other's business. Like you weren't super close, but you weren't super far away either. Which I thought was really important because if you're having a conversation with someone, you want them to feel comfortable. And like being too close or being too far away will make it uncomfortable. And like you two obviously were across from the table, so it's easy to face each other. But I feel like facing each other in a conversation is really important. But we can go ahead and move on unless there's any other questions on reflecting emotions. I noticed it was a little difficult for you all. So do you feel like maybe you need some clarification or maybe just more practice later on? You don't have to do. Obviously, we don't have time to do it right now, but it's something that's in your head that you can maybe implement later.
Yeah, it's cool. I liked it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask, so reflecting emotions is pretty much specifically for like when someone wants to rant?
No, it can be for like I said, a really happy thing. Like if I was like he.
We can do it.
Well, I was just gonna bring up Tim's example where I didn't hear this whole story, but if he was talking about winning $400, he could be like, dude, I just won $400 in fantasy football, and you could be like, whoa, that's awesome. Like that sounds like. He had mentioned that he was proud, but basically you could be like, wow, it sounds like you're really happy about that. And that's what Matt said, even though Tim had disagreed. But, it could be something happy. Or maybe they're worried, like, oh man, I got this test coming up and I haven't been able to study it all. And be like, wow, it sounds like you're really, really worried about this test. And that's when you can go into another step later, which is like resource giving or advice giving, which we'll go into later. But it's basically just validating how they feel, no matter the emotion. And in real life, like you can use other things. It's just in this particular instance, I didn't want you to talk because I wanted you to focus only on reflecting emotions. Because you can, in a real life situation, you can use other tools. It's just in this particular exercise I wanted to do just reflecting emotions. So next, I want to talk about paraphrasing. This is really important in active listening because it lets the other person know that you're following along with them. It is kind of like a restatement so that it allows the speaker to know that you're following along, but also gives room for clarification in case you missed something in the story, or maybe you didn't mention something that was really essential to the other person that they wanted to highlight. So you want to offer the restatement to exist in the background of the conversation and avoid intruding the person's process or flow of thinking. So like you don't want to say something and then have them be like, wait, what? And then have that distract from the conversation. Offer a listening attitude. It's like I said before, it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to be inaccurate because that gives the other person a chance for clarification. So does anybody need like kind of an example of what a paraphrase might be? Because Joel and I can do that if you are kind of unsure.
Sure.
Okay, so do you want to tell a story or do you want me to tell a story?
You can tell us that.
Okay. Okay. So this week I finally saved up enough money to buy my plane ticket to Michigan, and I'm really excited. I have connections over in Michigan right now. I have some friends out there, and then Stacy Gunner, who's the Student Conduct and Development Director, has a bunch of faculty and staff people out there who work at MSU, which is Michigan State University, and I'm going to tour the school, and I'm like super excited because I've never actually been in another state outside of California, so
you just bought a plane ticket to go to Michigan to tour Michigan State University, where you want to go, and you have connections there through Stacy Gunner because she went there, and so you're really excited about going there because it's the first time you're being out of state somewhere.
yeah. So yeah, that's like a paragraph. Here basically, I mean, it doesn't have to be as long, but basically you got like the key points of like, wow, you got this plane ticket, you got all these connections, this is something you really want to do and somewhere you want to go. Like, I guess in regards of an incident, if someone is saying, this is what happened that night, you might want to be like, okay, so this person bought the alcohol, and then you called this person to come over, and then the RA knocked on the door at this time, and it's almost like, it's not, obviously you're not writing an incident report, but like you're kind of just like recalling the stuff so that with the other resident, or all the residents, so you can get the story straight between all of them, and because that way, when you do go write your incident report, it'll be accurate. So, let's see, we're going to go ahead and practice again. So let's switch up groups actually. So let's go you two and then you two. And then this time we're going to be paraphrasing. You can still reflect emotions. You can still, please be still aware of your nonverbals. But try to refrain from offering resources or advice. And if you want, you can even take it to like an RA level. So if you want to do it at like pretend you're in an incident or talk about an incident you've had or something like that. Obviously you haven't had one, but you can make one up if you want. So you can rearrange yourselves.
I'll stay there.
Sorry about that. I'll let you open.
I don't know. It was hard to come up with a story from last night.
I'll let you go.
I talked about how I was alive in my room. That's what I talked about first.
I'm going to tell you the story of...
It's a story of...
I have an idea.
I'll just say.
Just give me 1 second. Okay, so when I was in high school, it was like, it was my senior year and I was going to graduate soon. And so, this girl invited me to one of her parties, right? But she wanted me to get alcohol. And I was 18, I wasn't even 18 years old, I was like 17. So one of my friends, McLovin, got a fake ID, and so he went in to go get the alcohol, but when that happened, he got robbed, and the cops came, and I didn't even realize it. So eventually, we just left because we didn't want to get in trouble with the cops, we just booked it. And so I guess he spent the whole night with the cops, hanging out with them, and then we finally saw him on the way to the party. But one of the cops hit my friends while we were arguing in the street. One of the cops accidentally hit my friend, and so we just booked it from the cops, and then we went to this party, and it was a lot of fun. But the cops ended up breaking that in too. So yeah.
I'm kind of confused about some parts, but the parts that let me reiterate to you what I understood from the story that you just told me. First, it was entertaining. So you said that in high school you were invited to a party by this girl, but she wanted you to get the alcohol. But you were under 18 at the time, and so your friend had a fake ID, and so he goes to get the alcohol, except he gets robbed.
Yeah.
So
Punched in the face.
and punched in the face.
Yeah.
And so, you and your friend are arguing. I don't know if it's the same friend or not. You and your friend are arguing, and your friend gets hit by the cops. And then, so you guys are like, oh, well, never mind. We'll just go to the party and have a great night. Except your friend gets stuck with the cops for the entire night.
There was 3 friends. One friend was stuck with the cops, and me and my other friend. He got hit by a car. The cops.
The cops didn't do anything?
Last week.
Well, they were gonna try to blame it on us, so we ran.
In different equations and things like that. Trying to do a lot of projects and create assignments. I said last week was really
You know that's the movie Superbad, right?
No.
That was just this great plot from Superbad.
I've never seen it.
It's gonna be stressful, but you're gonna try to.
Him and I were like, she's never seen it because we could tell.
Oh yeah.
Because like we knew right away, but she was like really like.
Good stuff.
Alright, you feel good?
Oh man.
Yeah, real good.
Alright, real good.
We're pretty good at paraphrasing.
Nice. I noticed. I was watching.
I've
Alright,
never
so
seen it.
that's okay. That's okay. It was entertaining to watch.
What were you saying?
I told her the plot from Superbad as a story. I was in high school, I got invited to a party, but this girl wanted me to buy the alcohol.
I was like, wait, this happened too?
It was when you said McLovin, your friend
Yeah.
McLovin.
Yeah.
Yep.
You see the golden
Actually, I
flight?
was shrimp. That's what
Oh, look.
Nice. All right, so things that I noticed that went really well. As I was watching you two talk, I noticed Matt was very like attentive to what Ryan was saying. Like he was made constant eye contact and was like nodding his head. And like when he was paraphrasing, like it wasn't too much. Like he wasn't being a parrot. He wasn't saying word for word what he had said. And he said it in a way that sounded genuine instead of like, yeah, so you did this and this and this and this. Like it sounded like he was really concerned that like you were so stressed out and how we're taking all these classes and stuff like that. So good job, Matt. Thank you. I didn't get to see the other way around, so I'm not saying you didn't do well. I just didn't see it. Okay, thank you. Would you like to say some things that he did well?
It was pretty like spot on. He kind of just understood it all. Even the intensive minutes, like the whole time, like he was actually listening. A little sit back, so it was kind of I wasn't sure if you could get interrupted with those. I was listening to them as I was telling my story half the time too.
Yeah.
So it was difficult. But when he was, it's okay. He was kind of loud. She was laughing, so I wanted to hear. And but at the end of the day, like he was really able to say like, everything that was on my mind and knew my feelings. Like specifically.
Good. How did that feel?
Reassuring, and that like one thing too, when you even say the feelings, it's kind of like how you say them. Like it's something you want like because like I want to have fun this weekend with homecoming heading. So he could have been like, you want to have fun this weekend for homecoming, you know, like he could have paraphrased in a weird way, but he didn't. So it was like kind of like letting me know that it's okay to have fun.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up. So, tone is like 90% of everything that we say. So, what Matt was saying is that when you're having a conversation with someone and you're reflecting emotions, especially if you're like paraphrasing and reflecting emotions, you could come off as completely judgmental, which will throw the other person off, and then that closes them off from you. And then they won't want to talk to you, they won't want to open up, and that just, like, all the progress you've made up until now is gone because of that one thing that you said. So thank you for bringing that up, especially in an incident when if there is something, for example, like as we were sharing, or as you all were sharing, it came to my mind, like if someone was maybe sharing something about sexual assault and you were talking to them and they had revealed something and you said something that comes off as judgmental, even if you maybe didn't mean to, if it comes off that way, that just shuts them down completely. And that can happen in any case. Like if there's if when he was talking about, alcohol, maybe if you had decided to say something like, oh, you're going to a party, instead of, oh, you're going to a party. Like, see how those two were the exact same words but sounded completely different? So that's why, tone is super important when you're paraphrasing and reflecting emotions. And same thing with, your nonverbals, because, even if you're not talking, if I'm like, oh, you're going to a party? Or, oh, dude, you're going to a party? Even though, it's still completely different, does anyone else have anything that they wanted to share?
I thought she did a good job of trying to paraphrase just to make sense of the whole story, because it's a big story.
Yeah.
And that way I could kind of help her with some of the details that she was maybe didn't get.
Yeah, I love how you started off your paraphrasing where so I'm kind of confused, but what I heard you say was, and I thought that was great, because you threw a disclaimer down, you're like, look, I'm confused, so it gave them a chance to kind of clarify, but then you also said, what I heard you say was, which I think is really powerful, because it's not, you said this, because then it becomes accusatory. You said, what I heard you say was, so now it's on you, because you heard it. So it adds room for clarification, and Tim, did you feel when she said that, were you upset that, man, you weren't listening, or were you thinking, oh, let me tell you then?
Yeah.
Exactly. So, good job. That was really good. Anything else did you observe anything?
No, I was going to make that point.
Okay.
That she started off with this is what I think I heard.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I'll just say that I agree with what you said about Matt. He paraphrased in a way that wasn't using the same words that I used and adding in how I felt and concern about stressful classes.
Mm-hmm. And it felt genuine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right on. So, we're all, this is your second year, so you may not know as many resources, but I feel like a lot of us know a lot of resources on campus. So, do you want to just mention some on campus that could be useful? That we could, counseling services, thank you.
Student services.
Student services.
PhD. Health center.
Your connections.
How do you use it?
I'll do yours to send.
When's yours?
Yeah. Let's wait.
What is a cross-school
Writing
center?
Communication Center.
Computer LLC.
Computer Lab. LLC, there you go. What was that?
Library.
The library. What is it now? It used to be the Disability Research Center,
Yeah,
now it's the
Accessible Education Center.
Accessibility or accessible?
Accessible.
Accessible Research Center? AEC? Okay, well that's also something. So in our last exercise, I'm going to allow you to use advice and to utilize all the other skills that we just used, but also be able to offer resources and give advice. So let's tell a story where that might actually be relevant. I'm not saying that the other ones weren't, but let's make sure that we have one that's like maybe deep enough to provide resources for someone. So last one, who hasn't teamed up? So you two and you two. You can use a previous story if you feel comfortable like using it again.
What's the last movie you saw, Tim?
I gotta think of another movie.
I want to space out a bit.
Yeah, actually that's a good idea. Why don't you guys come over here so that you're far enough away from them that you don't get distracted. You can use this chair. And I can use this too.
Story. That's relevant.
You can sit here if you want.
Okay, I'll start off.
Okay.
So
I was gonna get there.
my best friend broke up with his long-term girlfriend a couple months ago, and he's been going through a really hard time in his life, and he's been contemplating suicide, and I was looking for some way to help him out.
Oh, okay. So has he tried to commit suicide before? Do you know if he has?
I don't know, but I'm worried about him attempting suicide.
Yeah, it sounds like you're worried. Well, I mean, some of the resources that we have on campus are counseling services. Is he a student here?
No, he's not.
Oh, okay, he doesn't go here. We have a suicide hotline actually that I can give you the number for if you want to pass it along to him.
Okay.
But are you feeling kind of like you want to deal with him, you know, personally one-on-one, or you would just like to get him good resources?
Well, I would like to help him one-on-one, but that would require going back home, and if I could, I would like to just give him resources that he can use back home. But if I need to, then I would definitely help him personally.
Yeah, you want to give him, okay, well, here's the number for suicide hotline. Yeah, that's most of what I got. Okay, so mine is, okay, so I have, so there's these there's these roommates on my floor, right? And they are, like, one of them is really, like, they all comply with each other, but one of them will be like, yeah, okay, I'll take out the trash, and then she'll go outside and, like, talk crap about him on the phone. Or she will, like, post on Facebook about him, like, you know, I hate these bitches and things like that. And so, yeah, it's frustrating when you don't have any actual evidence to this going on, you know, and so it's tough to kind of figure out who to believe, you know.
Okay, it sounds like you have some roommates that act like they like each other, but then one of them just doesn't actually like them and only goes along with what everyone else is, what the other roommate is saying, and tries to act nice to them. Maybe you could talk with them, find out either just individually or if they're willing to have them talk together to communicate their disagreements. Maybe they have something in their roommate agreement that they can talk about.
Okay. That's good. But yeah, I think what we'll do is we'll call the one that's kind of being a bully in and kind of see what's going on with her and see how we need to proceed with it with this person.
Okay.
Because that's bullying, cyberbullying.
I don't know.
That's how we're gonna do it. So you want to be alright?
Yeah.
Where you live right now?
Joe West.
Oh, are you a
Third
freshman?
floor, second year.
Oh, okay. You did the returning Joe West thing.
It's cheaper than CBD.
Is it? How much cheaper?
Well, if I didn't have the meal plan, it would obviously be cheaper to live with then I would have food ready for me, so I'd have to worry about food. So with the meal plan, it's like $1,000 cheaper a year or a semester to live in your life.
Oh wow, you see me.
Yeah, so like,
Yeah,
I
it's
noticed
pretty,
like,
probably, yeah,
well,
because
we'll
of the
talk about it later
apartments.
too.
I didn't know it was that much cheaper.
Like I noticed that, you showed concern and then also
Are you
like, if
an
she said
RN
something
student?
and kind of
I'm
like,
a
you
ARLC
smile, like,
and I'm in the
so,
bricks.
Oh, okay.
Like,
So,
the whole time, you know what I mean?
So
I
I
felt like,
supervise some of the RAs, like some of the RAs in the bricks and
like
stuff
I'm
like
worried
that.
about
Okay.
So I like it. It's
One
fun
thing too that you know,
dealing
like
with them.
going up working in the gym,
And
you
like,
can't really go
that's actually a
because you go late,
legitimate
it keeps your
conflict that one of them's having.
Yeah.
Right
You
now?
know, yeah,
Wow.
with a couple fake roommates. Or not a couple fake, one of them's just,
So I was asking,
she's fake, and so
if you go right before it closes,
it's really tough when you don't have evidence against,
Yeah.
you know, you just, it's all hearsay. It's, oh, I was talking to my mom, or you heard her talking to her mom or something like that. So
Yeah.
we'll see how it gets resolved. I let my boss take care of that.
Okay.
Yeah, some roommate conflicts you just,
Can't deal with yourself.
yeah. And some of them you just like, they just need to move, you know.
Yeah.
Like I've had a couple bad ones where it's just like, okay, I need to move you tonight to a different
Like, I was
room.
like, I kept hearing
One of my roommates last year
I heard
lived on the 12th floor,
shower really late.
and his roommate
Because I was
or
just doing, like,
roommates
I have like two, I have three goods. One for
Or-
I'm coming up with some of the rest I need to
potheads, I guess,
So-
and he just wasn't into that. So he, instead of making a conflict out of it, he just moved
And then I made
into
lists
my
of
room
things
on
I have to do for my
the
son,
second
so I
floor.
did today. So I just uploaded
Yeah.
those lists, and I was like, you
Did he,
know what,
like,
I have
apply to
like 5
move, or-
things that I want
Yeah,
to
he
do.
applied.
Oh, okay.
So I ended up doing
Or you
that,
just
and
took
then
his
I
shit
shower,
and
like,
moved.
my
No,
shower,
he
I
did.
kept like,
He
into
did
my
actually
room,
apply
and
because
it sounded like
I
somebody
was
was
in a triple,
at
but
my window, when I
one of our
went to
roommates
so there's no way
got
anybody's at my
switched
window.
because I guess he was on our wait list for CDC
Yeah,
or
I was
something.
yeah, I
or
was I came back in a towel.
so there was a
because
vacant
nobody
bed
was up at 4 in the morning.
for the
And I was
whole
like,
first
actually,
semester, and he
basically
just
naked
moved
in my room, and I hear sounds like really scary.
Like that.
And I had like one light
Yeah,
on,
there's a
so
lot of
um,
potheads.
I went,
Yeah,
I
a
got
lot
out
of
of bed,
people
and I was like,
smoke.
oh wait, I can on the bed.
Exactly.
So I put my towel back up,
And
and I
it's
walked
just
in
like,
because I didn't have the
it's
little
just
light
a matter of it,
by the mirror on.
like,
I was kind
it
of scared.
smells like
And
it's
then
super
so,
pervasive, so
I
it's just a
went
matter
to go
of,
check and make sure my door was
you know,
locked.
like keeping it
And then
off
when I
campus
was at
or
my door,
keeping
I
it
heard a piece
somewhere
of
else.
paper fall.
Mm.
So,
But I turned and looked, and
and
I
that's
didn't
where you
see
get the
anything on
room
the floor.
conflict.
And I was so scared. And then
Alright, as much as I know you didn't get a chance to share, but I do kind of want to get things rolling along. So,
I got to.
let's get back together and talk about how things went. So let's talk about some things that went really well.
I thought Ryan did a good job, you know, finding logic in the situation, like piecing the story together, and then giving me advice based on what he pieced together. You know.
Did you feel like he accurately pieced it together through like paraphrasing or like
Yeah.
stuff like that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
I felt like he did a good job at paraphrasing what I said and then giving me some resource and also asking me a question about how I want to deal with the situation and then going from there.
Yeah, how did that feel? Because I know sometimes like when people give advice, it feels like, you know, that's the only outlet and they don't always offer you like, hey, like, what do you think we should do? So like, how did that feel?
It felt really good that he wasn't just listening, he was actively listening to what I was saying.
Good job, Tim. And then how about you, Tim?
I really like that he asked questions like after I had my piece, and I felt like it was kind of like a rant, but I was just trying to like be entertaining because it's not my life, and I won't be boring. But so like he asked me about like what time I go to the gym, just like trying to help me figure out like why it's so difficult for me to sleep, and just like additional questions about like academics, and like his concern was mostly on me rather than my academics, but like that's what I was talking more about. And I appreciate like him like his he made a lot of eye contact, so like even when I wasn't looking, I knew he was still looking at me, so I felt like I was being listened to.
How did that feel, the fact that like he was constantly looking at you? I mean, you said like it felt like he was listening, but like did it make you feel comfortable? Did it make you feel like you were being listened to, etc.?
Yeah, I definitely felt like I was being listened to. I honestly didn't pay too much attention to him looking at me. It was more like an afterthought.
So it wasn't like distracting that he was constantly looking at
Well, I guess I try not to think about it, but.
you. Okay. Alright.
It's just, I get it too, like, but, it can be, it could be distracting. It could be. I think part of it is because to me it was like I was just talking about it. I wasn't looking for like, I don't know, it wasn't like that.
That's definitely something to be
It's more
mindful of.
casual.
Is that in some cultures, eye contact is intimidating, or it is like a sign of respect or even disrespect, or like a level of power. So depending on who you're talking to, it could be good, it could be bad. So maybe just be conscious of it. Like if you notice the other person's getting uncomfortable, like if they're like constantly looking down, never looking at you, or if they're like fidgeting or like they look uncomfortable, definitely like, I mean, you want to bring that up too. You want to be like, hey, like I noticed you look a little uncomfortable. You want to talk about that? So just so they can bring it out in the open. If you do realize it, you can always change how you're acting too. In hopes that it makes them feel better, but it's always good to address it too, I think, in my opinion. Some things that I noticed too, like Matt, because some of the topics that she was talking about, were serious, like lack of sleep, and I noticed like he brought up like, hey, like I'm concerned about these sleeping pills and like, stuff like that. So I feel like not once, I mean, this was just me, maybe I don't know how you felt, but I felt like if it was me sharing a story, I didn't feel like I would have been like I wouldn't feel judged. Like I felt like you were coming from a place of concern, not a place of judgment.
Yeah.
Like you weren't like, because you were asking like, well, what time do you go to the gym, and what was the other one like?
Like I said, did you prescribe it?
Yeah, and like I didn't sound like oh, are you a druggie? Like it didn't sound that way. It sounded like you were concerned, and I think a lot of it did have to do with like your tone, because it easily could have been, it could have gone all south from there. Because like when I heard those questions, I was like, oh, like it kind of was like, oh, okay, but like the way that you said it, I felt like it didn't come off as bad. But I don't know, how did you feel when you said those things?
It was okay, because I know, like again, I knew it was coming out of a place of concern, not like judgment.
And how were you able to tell that?
It was like, I don't know, like, I was gonna say it's like the first question he asked right after I finished, but then again, that could come off as, his posture didn't change, so it didn't seem like, oh, like it just the very like thought process just going, like it's not like it did, I don't know, I guess it was like no changes in here. That kind of made me feel like, oh, this is just like another part of the conversation.
Okay, I can see that.
I agree with that.
So one of the things that I noticed, it was when Ryan was talking and Tim was listening, and you both did a really good job at paraphrasing and reflecting emotions. But when you were offering resources, the first thing was counseling services, which was great. But then you asked if the person Ryan was talking about was a student here, and he wasn't. So then counseling services wasn't relevant, and so then you offered a different one. That would be. I thought that was really good, because you can't throw all these like San Jose State resources at someone, but if they're not a student here, all that's irrelevant. So any advice and resources, they need to be relevant to the situation of the person. So I thought that was really good.
Yeah.
Wait, so he was saying that he wasn't he's
Right.
His friend. Yeah.
but he's like, what kind of thing is it? 'Cause isn't it if you're in a relationship, you can actually bring them in if they don't go here?
I think if it's a relationship with that person.
Yeah.
But since it was his friend
Oh, got it.
who was out of the relationship.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
That's good.
I thought they were like your concerns though, so I was like,
No, he was talking about a friend who's going through it,
got it.
and he needed advice to give them. Maybe. Any other thoughts? Maybe things that can improve? I mean, we talked a little bit about how eye contact and like certain things can be intimidating or even just different in general depending on the person you're talking to. But was there anything that came up in our conversations?
I think keeping eye level is nice, and that's what they're taller than me. So.
Also, you were in a chair that was a little bit lower as
And I
well.
was leaning forward a little bit. I don't know. But I felt like there was a height difference in the moment. Didn't keep a
that affect the conversation?
I felt like I should be a little bit more like happy, even though I was talking about something serious, because it felt kind of uncomfortable to be and like I was like sinking into that chair, and it felt like it makes me feel like he's a superior, and so like when I was talking about, I tried to be like more lighthearted. So even when he did ask those questions, I knew it was coming out of a place of concern. So although it was like initially alarming for like half a second, because it was out of concern, it was okay. But the height did play a role.
Absolutely. I feel like that it includes a power relation when that happens, and I'm wondering if it had been the exact situation, but it wasn't Matt, it was someone who didn't know, and they had said the exact same things Matt said in the exact same way he said it, and you were in that exact setup, how would you have felt?
Like if they were a counselor.
Okay.
I probably would have sat on the arm of the chair. I probably would have, just because it's easier to attack somebody if they're sitting in a chair like this rather than sitting on. I can just stand up. Sorry, just kidding.
Okay. So did you feel like defensive, or do you think you would feel more defensive if that happened? Okay. Are there any other things anyone wants to address?
One good thing about that. They're talking so much. So when I was sitting over there, and I was gonna let Matt start telling his story, I ended up starting talking about something else, and I was like, oh wait, I'm sorry, let me let you tell your story. And he said, no, it's okay. And I was like, oh, okay. So I kind of just, because it seemed like he was interested in what I had to say, so I didn't feel like I was wasting his time, so I did tell the story.
I didn't even think about that. It's very true though.
Good job, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to me.
So do you all feel, I mean, I know, like I said before, you're not an RA, but if you were an RA, and for the rest of you who are in leadership positions, do you feel like you could take these skills, and do you feel at least somewhat confident that you would be able to apply them in a situation within housing?
Definitely.
And what are some situations in the past that, like, are there any situations in the past where you think, oh man, this could have been really useful?
Roommate conflicts always.
Absolutely. I was thinking the
every
exact same
single
thing.
time. Every single time.
Absolutely. So do you feel like in the future, if there is a roommate conflict, you feel like this maybe better equips you a little bit?
I would say so for sure. I mean, I try to use it because I've heard some similar knowledges, but it's very difficult at times too, depending on the other individual, because they have to be kind of cooperative at times. But there's just been tough in CVB, so I've seen it with like, especially when like one person feels attacked in the room, and you're coming in to try to like help them out, and they feel like you're trying to like kick them out as well.
Absolutely.
Like, it can be very difficult. So using these skills, especially like the emotional reflection.
Reflecting emotion.
Yeah, like reflecting emotion. I feel like that would be a lot beneficial to be able to kind of like validate with how they're feeling right now, whether they're angry at me or angry at the situation, and kind of like gaining more insight on really what are they really mad at.
Absolutely. And I feel like it kind of gains some rapport as well. Like they kind of trust you a little bit because like they feel like you're understanding them.
Exactly.
And one thing going back to the nonverbals is that, especially in a roommate conflict, it can be a deciding factor, because I feel like when there are roommate conflicts, they're typically so set that they want to move out. They don't want to be with each other anymore. So if you do something that shows that you don't care or you don't pay attention, they're even more set in their ways that they don't want to be together. Like, well, if you don't care, then I don't care, and I just want to get out of here. Yeah.
What do you feel like you can do though? Because like for instance, I had one, and like there was like two girls, and like they lived in the same room kind of thing. And like for me, I ended up pretty much imitating their body language because I was done. Like Dan kind of had to come in and kind of help out a little more, but I just was at that point like I'm done. So I sat back in it. But for their instance, you could tell one girl was just turned off. Even her tone of voice really set the stage. I mean, do you think it's appropriate to call someone out on that? Or
yeah, one thing is, I know for me, I know how you feel.
Yeah.
I've recently had a situation where someone was setting up the stage in a way that made it so that I was reflecting their attitude and their personality, and it made it really hard for me to, to cool down and get down to what needed to be solved. So like for me, something that I do is that I'll stop and I'll try and calm myself down. Sometimes even if it means like physically separating myself from it. Like in a situation, like I was in a quarrel with a resident, and I was getting so frustrated with him that I literally had to be like, you know what, I need to walk away. And I walked away to like the rest of a couple other team members, like Joel was there and Amber was there, and I was like, this is so frustrating, like I really need to, like what should I do? And like maybe just kind of collecting yourself, take that time to stop, collect yourself, think about what you're gonna say next, and then come back and address it. That way you have the time to kind of stop, calm down a little bit, and think of the next thing to do. Because I know, especially in the roommate agreement, if you're in one room, it's kind of hard to leave.
Yeah.
But I definitely think stopping for a second and just kind of like thinking and then listening and then going on and communicating, I feel like can be really useful. Because I know that when it's an aggressive climate, a lot of times you're feeding off each other's energy. But if you stop, maybe they'll stop too for a second. I'm not saying it's always going to work, but it's definitely a possibility that if you stop and think for a little bit and just kind of calm down, maybe like they won't have anything to be triggered off of, and so they'll maybe stop and think for a second. But I definitely think it's like if they are like being aggressive, you can just, but that's when reflective emotions come in. You can be like, wow, you seem really upset and really annoyed. So let's talk about this. Why do you feel this way? And so that gives that person to share their opinions. And I mean, it's not always going to be successful. Maybe that person's going to be like, well, you have no reason to feel this way. And then you can be like, wow, it sounds like you're really upset and when she does this. So, yeah, it's definitely like, you know what I mean? If you come in handy.
It made a lot of sense.
I know I just talked a lot, and so I'm sorry if that felt like I was rambling, but if it helped, I'm glad that's it.
Pieces did. Take what I need.
Good. All right. Well, so does anyone have any questions or need any other clarification? Thank you for asking that.
Thank you for answering.
You're welcome. No? All right. Well, then last but not least, I have those sheets. So if you want to just if you need more, I have more. If you want to just on one side maybe write something that went well with the workshop, and on the other side you can write things that can be improved. It can be completely anonymous, so you don't have to put your name. Other than that, just go ahead and leave them right here when you're done. I'll just stand over here so you don't feel like I'm watching you. Also, you all are welcome to keep those slides that I printed out, especially if you took notes and if it's something that you want to refer to later, or even if you want to have your own program and use the same things. I feel like it can work well as a communication program, like an active program, if it's something you're interested in. Other than that, if you're done, you're free to leave. I just want to thank you all. It really means a lot to me. It's always hard recruiting people for workshops, so if you ever need someone to come to your workshops, I owe you one, so I'll be there.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate y'all being here.
So were you going to do this as a program?
No, it's for a class.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I actually did this for, you know how we had to do the in services for spring training last year, I did this program and I got 5th place. So I was actually pretty happy because like educational programs like never really place. It's always like the more fun ones. So I felt pretty proud that mine actually placed.
Yeah, that it's always like candy sushi.
Exactly. Yeah.
What was candy sushi?
Like meditation time.
Yeah.
Making sushi out of candy.
Yeah.
Usually like fruit roll-ups, right? Just some treats and like some gushers and kind of like mix it together.
Sounds delicious.
Oh, it's actually sounds hella good, like the fruit roll-ups.
Yeah.
No, that was candy.
Like, but
Candy. So like they use
What's the point?
what do you mean? What's
It's
the
a-
point?
it's a
It's
program.
delicious.
You just take candy, roll it together, we eat it.
you learn about
Yeah.
the culture. And
The culture of candy or the culture of sushi?
I don't know. I'm just saying something.
It seems like a
You don't,
community
like-
builder or something.
It's a community.
Yeah.
Slash
Diversity training.
fun program.
The recording